strategies that you use, and who are some of the people that use them and provide them for you. So now that everyone's going to meet themselves up front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here on my left with Maxine and let her introduce herself, tell a little bit about her company, how long she's been there, and why you should pay attention.
Hi everyone, my name is Maxine. I'm the founder of Bunndle. We started about 3 years ago, and our focus is on monetization and user acquisition for ads. We started the company with the focus of helping developers acquire users and make money. As you all probably know, it's a really difficult issue, and scale is a big problem. When you're competing with big brands out there, it's not always easy. So having sat in your seats way back when, I thought it would be really great to open up a platform to developers and also give them an opportunity to make money.
Great, thank you very much. Laura?
Hello, my name is Laura Buchman, and I'm VP of Publisher Solutions at OpenX. OpenX is one of the leading digital technology companies, and we operate one of the world's largest real-time bidding exchanges. We also represent about 95% of the leading US advertisers and almost 60% of the Comscore Top 100, in addition to powering the Samsung Ad Hub exchange.
Wow, and you're both ex-golfers too, how about that? So we got a lot of history in that. And the next guy, Christian, I'll let him introduce himself, but I can't ask any bad questions because he's a boxer as well, and I don't want to get the right questions.
You're sharing secrets from dinner last night.
I read it on the website.
Oh, okay. So I'm Christian Galvin. I work with Fiksu. I'm the Managing Director of Mobile App Sales. Sounds like a pretty similar story in terms of what we do and the rest of the panelists up here. But Fiksu is a user acquisition platform, completely agnostic to the traffic source. We work with about 50 different traffic source partners, driving cost-efficient installs. Founded about 4 years ago, now with over 500 clients, 185 employees based in Boston, with a smaller office out here in San Francisco as well.
Good deal, thank you so much. And Remco, I have to ask, did you really come from the Netherlands just for this panel?
Exactly. So I'm from the Netherlands. I'm actually going to relocate in a few weeks also for this panel, of course. But I'm coming to San Francisco. I'm one of the founders of Distmo, an app analytics company. We track distribution and monetization for a huge amount of developers worldwide. We allow them to track how much revenue they're making in the app stores, to look at the reviews, rating, rankings, etc. But we also allow them to track competition, and I think that's pretty unique in the space. So we allow them to track revenues or estimated revenues for competitors, so they can really see how much money is going on in the ecosystem. They can benchmark themselves and also track how many downloads they need for a certain ranking position, for example.
I saw that I was playing with it last night. So you're telling me, Remco, I actually can see what my competitors are spending and I gives me the chance to outspend them?
Not really spending, but you can see how many downloads and revenues they're generating.
Got it, got it. I've got a question that's for two people, both Laura and Christian. I noticed you both have Coca-Cola as customers. Is that a common theme that you all share customers? Is that unique, unusual? Or if I was in a large company, would I want to do business with all four, two, three, one, both? What's the answer?
I'll start. So I think the simple answer is yes. If you look at most of the players in the space and you look at their logos listed on their website, it's pretty often that I see logos that I'm working with that likely everyone else in this panel is also working with, and a few people in the audience are also working with. So I think everyone would strive to, so on my side, the user acquisition side, I certainly would love to get 100% of our clients' budget, but everyone's willing to test in this space. So if Coca-Cola is testing with Fiksu, I'm sure they're testing with other players to finally find that one partner that's driving them, in my world, the most efficient downloads.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have about 95% of the Ad Age Top 100, and it would be awesome if we were the only ones out there that wanted to get all 100, but I think it's pretty common. If you think about it, Coca-Cola has many brands, there's different types of campaigns, there's acquisition, there's branding, so there's room for many different goals and objectives that the advertisers are trying to hit. You know, at OpenX, on what we feel differentiates us from the buyer's perspective is the auction mechanics that we have in place and the way that we're matching the buyers and sellers together for whatever their campaign goals are.
Maxine, I have a question for you. Analytics probably plays a really important role in where I spend. I heard the word testing, maybe people that like test and invest, where do I go? How does that play a role for folks who are looking to say, good ROI? Tell us.
Yeah, so analytics are important for two reasons. One is to really understand your user acquisition funnel. You want to make sure that you have analytics in place to track the user behavior, make sure that when you're showing an impression, showing an ad, that the users are actually clicking on it. You want to make sure that the performance of your product is working really well. So all of this is really important when you're trying to go down the funnel and calculate the bottom line, how much you're spending or how much you're making. So analytics is imperative. If not using a third-party service, at least using something internal to begin with.
What do they have that to benchmark against? Traditional advertising, like where they, like these metrics all become new because there's no history?
No, I think there are, I mean, you can use traditional advertising. Online advertising is a great benchmark, a nice place to start. You can also use, so we focus purely on apps. So if you're looking at something like a downloadable application on the desktop, or on a machine, that's also the same funnel from the metrics perspective.
Got it. So for our folks in the room in the audience, I have a question. How many of you are interested in global scale with your apps or like just US scale? Let's see it. We'll show hands for global scale. So that's almost half of them. Remco, can you tell me, what do they do when they think about global scale? What do they look at? Why do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, so we track up, of course, our apps on a global scale specifically. We provide market data for every country globally. What we really notice, it may seem a little bit very logical, but we really see that localization plays a huge role in monetization, especially in countries like Japan, for example, China, localization. If you don't localize your apps, you will not be able to make a lot of revenue there. But not only localizing in terms of the language, but also really looking at the specific market you're in to really see what kind of content suits well for that market specifically. Because if you really look at Japan specifically, a lot of these games and apps that are successful there are really specific to that market only. So it's very hard for a US or very Western app to be really successful in these countries specifically.
Now, does a mobile app distribution network play a big role in that, Maxine?
Oh, absolutely. When you want to make sure that the network has reach in that region, you also want to make sure that the network can target specifically for users in that region. So user behavior in Japan may be very different in the US, and so if you're focusing purely on demographics, that might not work. You probably want to think about the categories and the apps, which is what we do.
Got it. So one question, and I'll say, so I'm an app developer. At what point do I start looking to monetize my apps? I'll let anyone answer that question. As we talked a little bit about the strategies of doing it. When do I engage with tools so that I can get an ROI associated with it? Is there a critical mass number? And I'll throw that up as a jump ball.
So depends on how much money you raised. No, so working with both large brands and small app developers, I think the answer, unfortunately, is it depends. So we've worked with many small developers that needed to monetize from day one. We've worked with large brands with big budgets that also want to start monetizing from day one. So I don't know if there's one simple answer to that question. It's about user acquisition, it's about identifying what the goals are, and then driving the right traffic towards those goals.
So I guess we'll finish answering that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you also have to look very much at whether your app is, for example, using an app effect. An app like WhatsApp, for example, I can imagine they make the app first available for free just to get the right number of users before starting to pay to have people pay for the app. So if you have a one-off fee that you want to charge, you may consider waiting for the right number of users.
Got it.
I think it also depends on the type of apps. You have to think about, are you going to monetize through advertising or through user acquisition?
That's what I was going to ask you, given you're the ad person here. So should we think through, what are the strategies that go with both? If I'm sitting in the crowd and I'm thinking my app, is there a certain consumer app that has either a game or something in nature? Is there any characteristics that make me go one way or another?
I think it varies. So if you think about the way advertising is bought, there's certain types of users that are more valuable to advertisers. Demographically, but in this last panel we saw Millie, who's here from CBS, who has definitely a much more branded portfolio of advertisers. But then there was also a lot of conversation about user acquisition. So very different types of campaigns. Inventory performs very differently for those different types of objectives. So you can have a app developer that has tons and tons and tons of scale, but if it's not the audience that the advertiser is looking for, that scale is maybe less valuable than smaller scale but higher quality users. So that's where
Targeting is really important.
it is.
And are there certain tools that help me target the audience? Like, how do I know that that is for me as an advertiser? Do I have to scour through the game of the app and say that's my demographic, or is there algorithmic calculations that say this is what's best for you? No recommendation engines?
Well, I'll answer that one. So we actually do a little bit of both. We allow the advertisers to actually go in and select a few targets. We don't do traditional demographic targeting, mostly because we only focus on apps in our network. We don't really focus on bigger brands like the Coca-Colas of the world. We only work with functional apps. So we'll give the developers or the advertisers a chance to pick and choose, but we also have the algorithm and the recommendation engine in the background contextually targeting the right apps so that, leveraging all the data that we have across our network, we have a little bit of smarts that we can add in to the targeting for the advertising.
Got it. So whether I'm in the crowd or out in the audience somewhere around the world, I'm sure you've got questions and your head is spinning and you probably are asking yourselves, how do I choose a partner? So I'm going to give each of you a chance to say what are the top 3 things that you would suggest someone looks for in finding the right partner, as I'm sure there are a lot of startups out there and you don't have endless resources like some of the other companies unless you're well-funded. But
Sure, I'll start. So I think there's probably 2 answers to that question. There's one answer that is quite disappointing. It's short, 2 words, it depends. I find myself saying that quite often in the space. So quick background, I'm actually a former professional poker player. And during those years of playing poker, quite a few of my friends, as you can imagine, would ask me how to play specific hands in poker. And my response, my disappointing response to them was, it depends. There's just so many damn variables in play, I can't give you a short answer. And I find myself now, and I've been in the mobile space for about 2 years, often saying those same 2 words, it depends. So it depends on the platform that you're looking for, it depends on the goals of the campaign that you're looking for, the device that you're looking to target, the type of users that you're looking for. But I'll throw out a couple of names. So in terms of where you should start, my first answer to that question is likely Facebook today. So if we had this panel 6 months ago, I don't know if Facebook would have come up in the conversation at all. But as their earnings results recently showed, 6 days ago, that likely everyone in this room that's looking at user acquisition, and by the way, we're completely agnostic to traffic sources in terms of our Fiksu side, but in terms of results, I've often been saying that if there are any baseball fans in the audience, I've been citing that I think Facebook is the triple crown winner of mobile user acquisition. The 3 categories being engagement, scale, and cost.
okay,
So first start would be Facebook.
good. Laura?
I would say from an advertising perspective, the one thing I would recommend is that you diversify. To set expectations, even in the exchange world, it's early in mobile, and the more you diversify in the beginning, you want to pick someone that works with multi-screen advertisers as well as somebody that's more mobile specific, because the multi-screen advertisers are working on the cross-platform types of buys that may not come through the mobile channels. So I think, looking at both is important, and then, really diversifying it and then measuring and testing. And it's like a muscle, you have to work it, and there's not really one clean-cut answer for what's going to work. You just want to keep that. Use leveraging is the best partners you can, and keep testing and optimizing.
We're going to come back to that because I want to ask you how I get started with the exchange. But Maxine?
Yeah, I think, so if I think about monetization and the developer, I think the key questions you have to ask yourself is how many times am I going to reiterate, how many partners do I want to test with, and how much money do you want to make, and also what model do you want, right? So there are CPM models, CPC models, there are big fat SDKs and there are small SDKs, there's one SDK integration and then also multiple times you might have to integrate. So from a smaller company, a smaller developer perspective, you need to answer those questions first. If you're looking to make the most money, it's really going to depend on the different type of ad that you choose and type of model. But it is a very much depends. That's right.
Laura, how about you? What do I look for in a partner? I'm sitting here in this crowd and I'm like, holy moly, there's so many choices. Where do I start? Is it throw the dice?
Yeah, it is difficult. I think there's so many problems out there. I think analytics indeed is a very important thing to do. We look at how you can track your app. It often strikes me that a lot of people that are coming to us already have their app in the App Store, and afterwards they come to us and they wonder for themselves actually where their downloads are coming from, how much money they're making, and all that stuff. So you don't have to choose for us obviously, but yeah, look around and pick the analytics carefully and make sure that you have the metrics to make your the business decision that you need to make in the future.
Got it. So like I said, I come back to you around the exchange. How do we start using exchange? Like, how many people out there, raise your hand if you're using exchange today or you're dying to figure it out. Is anyone using exchange? One, just one. So There's a lot of education. Two people. So we know who you are. But how do they start using one? Why do they want to use one? Can you give us some insight, please?
Yes, wow, that's really interesting. So of the two that are using the exchanges, is that for advertising your inventory, or are you putting your inventory on the exchange? To make money. Okay, excellent. That's what I can help you with. So a couple things to get back to what I mentioned earlier. I think the first rule I've found to understand is that the exchange world is a little bit more mature in the desktop, in the multi-screen environment. It's less mature in mobile, although in the past 6 to 12 months we've seen a huge pickup in the scale. That said, you're going to want to leverage both. The multi-screen buyers are going to bring a lot of the large campaigns that are coming from the brands and the branded advertisers that are potentially have their own acquisition goals in mind. And then you have the mobile-specific guys that have a lot of that mobile ecosystem. So those are two very distinct types of exchanges. I think as the liquidity increases, the lines will start to soften and it will become less important. And then I think that what's really important is that you want to make sure that you're able to, as you put your inventory on these exchanges, you need to make sure that you're passing parameters that are valuable to advertisers. So there's things like geolocation, GPS. You can pass GPS location. That's very valuable. In a world without cookies and mobile, GPS is often the only proxy that we have to really identify users. That's really important. If you're able to pass the user agent, are your users coming from Wi-Fi or are they coming from the operator? Things like this are important for advertisers, and by passing that information, you can help make your inventory more valuable to those advertisers.
Well, what is the range of value? Does it go from like $1 to $100, $1 to $5? And like, so like if I pass geo, how much of a percentage bump does that give me? There's no red rule down there.
Thank you.
No rule? It depends.
Yeah, everything is a math problem of CPMs, cost per thousands, the GPS location. Is it, depending on what the advertiser's looking for, is New York more valuable than Arkansas?
Probably.
There's just so many different variables. So my rule of thumb is pass as much information as you can, because if there's a campaign out there that's looking for what your inventory is exposing, the ad server is going to pick your impression to serve that ad.
Like a Razorback fan who's looking for a parachute. That's Arkansas.
Exactly.
So how many people are passing geolocation with the apps they're building? Can we get a show of hands out there? Wow, not that many. 4. Holy moly. So we're going to have a class later about how to maximize your revenue intake. So on that, let's see here some other questions. As I think through them, what I'd really like to do is also challenge the crowd to think some questions, and we'll have you either pass the mic around or come up, because we're trying to ask questions that we know you want to hear based upon thinking what you want to think, but we really don't know what you think. So therefore, we're going to stimulate you to do so. So Laura, what we're talking about, what's the RTB and what does the developer care need to know about that? Is that something like you were just talking about in terms of what to ask?
Yes.
Is there a perfect list?
We're working on it. I think that's actually a really good question. First, I'll address RTB. So real-time bidding essentially is the ability to buy and sell digital advertising on an impression-by-impression basis in a bid marketplace. So it's a real-time auction for your inventory. We're matching buyers and sellers.
Got it.
Sorry to answer the other question, is there a list? I think, because of the fact that it is early, the best practices have not yet really been defined. So we know certain things that are critically important, like the geolocation we discussed, but a lot of the best practices are being defined as the buyers get more sophisticated and the sellers of the inventory expose more information.
It's great to be on the frontier, isn't it? So, Chris, you mentioned Facebook. So that's one avenue. Should we all place all cards, or like all in? Is that what you would say, right?
Yes. No. So in terms of, so I look at this. I look at the sort of the ecosystem and I put it into 5 buckets. So we have the incentivized channels, we have the non-incentivized channels. So on the incentivized side, think of the Tapjoys of the world, the native X's. The non-incentivized side, the traditional ad networks like the millennials and IAD and Google. And then there are the exchanges, so OPUB, Smono, NextAge,
OpenX.
and OpenX, and Google's AdX exchange. And I can say this, so on the buy side, we have a buying on behalf of 500 clients, so we have unique insight into where money is being spent. And the two channels for us where money is being spent at an increasingly strong growth rate are the social channels, and that really today is Facebook, but I think everyone in this room may know that Twitter is probably only a couple months away.
I was just going to ask, what role does Twitter play in this really?
So at this point, there is not much of a role. We're not spending much of any money with them. However, in a short period of time, I would guess that their app install product, the tweet card, will likely play an increasingly bigger role in this space. You think about, the dirty secret in mobile right now is when it comes to targeting, because there are no cookies, it's very difficult to target, right? So one of the unique advantages of Facebook, given all the information and data they have on us, is you can actually perform some targeted, run some targeted campaigns. And the expectation is with Twitter, you likely will be able to do the same.
So one can imagine that they're sifting my tweet logs, and all of a sudden they see the same way that we like beer, so therefore we're going to get served a Budweiser ad. Absolutely. So, Maxine, with the app distribution network, when these folks think about it, like, what would your top 3 things, or 4 or 5, like, what are the 10 commandments? What should they be thinking about when they think about like mass distribution?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I always start with their product. If you're trying to acquire new users, you obviously want to think about what you're building into your product that virally helps your business grow. The second thing is you need to think about distribution as you build your product. You can build a really great product, but if users can't find it, or if they can't discover it, or you haven't built for the channel like one of these, it's not going to succeed very well. So you need to think about that up front. That would be the first commitment, actually.
All right, can you elaborate on number 1? Because I think that you blew through that quickly, that people didn't maybe grasp it.
Yeah, so a lot of time when we build apps, we don't think about delivery, right? So some businesses do. You walk in the store, you get your card, that's where you get your card sold. From an app perspective, maybe you haven't thought about the size of the product, or maybe you haven't thought about the login requirement. These are all things that are barriers to users actually continuing to download or use your product. You want to make it as easy as possible, and though they seem obvious, a lot of times we forget about that. And then if you come into a network like mine, or maybe one of these, maybe some of these things prevent users from continuing to click, continuing to flow. So it's very important to think about distribution and user acquisition up front as you're building your product. It should be part of your development cycle.
And like, who do you think is thinking about that as a PM? What if it's a small startup and they don't have a PM? It's just like 5 really smart engineers. Is there at least they can go find the top 10 things to be successful? I know you said we're still on the frontier, but there's got to be some guidance, right? Otherwise, you're like out there in the ocean.
No, it really is the engineer, the business person, the PM, whoever it is who's thinking about the product should be thinking about this is number 1. Where am I going to put this so that my users can get it? No matter, it's a very simple question, it's not complicated, but if you don't put any thought behind it, users will not find you.
So let's get some questions from the audience before I go down my long list. Do we have any takers out there? Really? We're doing that good? Oh, there we go. I'll repeat it if you speak loud enough, or we're going to bring you a mic. Maxine. I got a mic runner.
Yes, hi. I would like to take the audience's. My name is Paul Werber. I'm with Nokia. I would like to take your opinion on native advertising and whether there's future in that and if there's a trend in that direction. Anyone?
I think we're hearing from publishers, both in desktop as well as in mobile, that they're looking for their users to have different types of experiences outside of the squares and the rectangles. At OpenX, we feel strongly about it. We incorporate the ability to do customized native advertising in our ad server. We also have the functionality to open that up in the Exchange environment. So that's, I think, from the advertising perspective, where we're using it.
I mean, I think any new ad unit is exciting, right? If you start thinking about, right now we're trying to take these little tiny banner ads in this little tiny device and get someone to actually click on that and convert through it. And one of the reasons why Facebook has been so successful, and certainly we're starting to see maybe some saturation get there, but it was new, right? It just showed up in your newsfeed one day. and all of a sudden people are willing to click on that. So in terms of native advertising, or really any sort of new ad unit that comes through, we'll see some success before it probably starts to take off at some point.
Christian, if I've got ace-king suited in late position, my question is, if an advertiser is looking at our mobile game and trying to decide if we have the right demographics for them, how do they know what our demographics are? And really the question is, how do we know what our demographics are? And obviously we haven't launched yet, or I wouldn't ask such a silly question.
There lies one of the biggest problems. So in some cases, a publisher does know that about their user. They may have registration data that they can pass into an ad call. So there's pretty dense activity where mobile apps and publishers are passing through age, gender, ethnicity, or household income into the ad call.
But we will need to either have captured that at registration or enhanced our data through third-party data enhancement, tagging, etc.
Yeah, I think typically you collect the data yourself from your users and you pass it on to an ad network. It's not something for the ad network to do. So it's really something that you have to collect yourself.
So what I believe I hear the Luster's panel saying is that you've got to ask more than one question when you sign up, or do you gather the information over time and begin building a persona of that individual, and then you maybe group them based upon the 5 things I see across this group of people? It's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, so we work less with advertising, as I understand it. Indeed, for example, geolocation, if you pass it on, then you can really target your users more accurately. If you do have information like age and gender, you can pass them as well to make it even better.
Yeah, it is. So I think maybe I'll ask the question for you a little bit differently. If he wanted to collect the 5 most important things, or the 3 most important things, what would those things be when he launches? Is that a better way?
What would he
Yes, what would he want to pass to get to maximize his revenue potential?
Well, I think
Location, we heard.
yeah, I was going to say location. Based on the fact that like 3 people raised their hand that they were passing location data, I would say that would be number 1.